Marcus Richardson adjusted his baseball cap and checked his reflection in the car mirror one last time. The wealthy CEO of Coffee Corp., a chain of over 300 coffee shops across the country, barely recognized himself in the worn jeans and faded t-shirt. His usual expensive suits were replaced with clothes he had bought from a thrift store the day before. Today, he would work as a regular employee at one of his own cafes, and nobody would know his true identity. The idea had come to him during a board meeting when profits from several locations were dropping. His executives suggested cutting staff hours and reducing wages, but Marcus wanted to understand what was really happening on the ground. He had started Coffee Corp 20 years ago with a single small shop, but now he rarely visited the actual stores. Numbers on spreadsheets had replaced the human connection he once had with his business. Marcus parked his rented Honda Civic outside the Maple Street location, one of the busiest shops in downtown. The morning rush was already in full swing, with a line of customers stretching almost to the door. Through the large windows, he could see employees moving frantically behind the counter. Steam rose from the espresso machines, and the familiar sounds of coffee grinding and milk frothing filled the air. He pushed open the glass door and was immediately hit by the aroma of freshly brewed coffee mixed with the scent of pastries. The noise level was intense, customers chatting on phones, the hiss of steam wands, orders being called out, and the constant beeping of the register. Marcus had forgotten how overwhelming a busy coffee shop could be. A harried-looking woman with graying hair and tired eyes approached him. Her name tag read, Sarah, Manager. She looked him up and down quickly, clearly assessing whether he would be able to handle the fast-paced environment. "You must be Mark," she said, using the fake name he had given. "I'm Sarah. We're incredibly short-staffed today, so you'll need to jump right in. Have you worked in food service before?" Marcus nodded, remembering his college days when he had worked part-time jobs to pay for school. "Yes, but it's been a while." Sarah's expression showed relief mixed with skepticism. "Good enough. We'll start you on the register. It's pretty straightforward. Just follow what Maya shows you. She's our best cashier." Marcus looked toward the counter where a young woman was rapidly taking orders while simultaneously handling payment transactions. Maya appeared to be in her early 20s, with dark hair pulled back in a neat ponytail. Despite the chaos around her, she maintained a genuine smile for each customer. Her movements were efficient and precise, clearly the result of months or years of practice. "Maya," Sarah called out during a brief lull. "This is Mark, our new hire. Can you show him the basics?" Maya looked up and flashed Marcus a warm smile that seemed to light up her entire face. "Hi, Mark. Welcome to the team. Don't worry, you'll pick it up quickly. The register system is pretty user-friendly once you get the hang of it." She spent the next 10 minutes walking Marcus through the point-of-sale system, showing him how to input different drink customizations, apply discounts, and process various payment methods. Her explanations were clear and patient, even as customers continued to stream in. "The most important thing," Maya said while ringing up a complicated order, "is to listen carefully to what customers want. Some people get really specific about their drinks, and if you mess up their morning coffee, it can ruin their whole day. I always try to remember that we might be the first interaction they have with another person today." Marcus was struck by her genuine care for customer service. In his corporate meetings, customer satisfaction was discussed in terms of metrics and percentages, but Maya understood it on a human level. As the morning rush intensified, Marcus found himself struggling to keep up. The register system that had seemed simple during the tutorial became confusing under pressure. He fumbled with the touch screen, accidentally charged a customer for a large instead of a medium, and had to call Maya over twice to help with payment processing errors. "It's okay," Maya whispered during one particularly embarrassing moment when he had to void an entire transaction. "Everyone makes mistakes at first. You're actually doing better than most new people." Marcus watched Maya work with growing admiration. She handled difficult customers with grace, memorized regular customers' usual orders, and somehow managed to keep the line moving smoothly, even when the espresso machines broke down temporarily. She was clearly the backbone of this location's customer service. But as the hours passed, Marcus began to notice concerning details. Maya had been working since before he arrived at 6 a.m., and it was now past noon. She had mentioned during a brief break that she had another job in the evenings and was taking online classes. Her energy remained high, but Marcus could see subtle signs of fatigue. The way she blinked more frequently, how she occasionally rubbed her temples, and the slight tremor in her hands when she thought no one was looking. "Don't you get a lunch break?" Marcus asked during a momentary quiet period. Maya shrugged. "We're too busy today. I'll grab something later. Besides, we're already operating with minimum staff. If I take a break, the line gets too long and customers get angry." Sarah, the manager, overheard this conversation. "Maya's right. Corporate has been very clear about labor costs. We can't afford to have people standing around. Everyone needs to pull their weight." Marcus felt a knot forming in his stomach. He realized that his corporate policies designed to maximize profits were creating an environment where dedicated employees like Maya were being pushed to their limits. The labor cost optimization that looked good on financial reports translated to real people sacrificing their health and well-being. As the afternoon wore on, the pace never seemed to slow down. Maya continued to work without any real break, occasionally grabbing a few sips of water or quickly eating a bite of a pastry between customers. Marcus watched her with growing concern and a newfound respect for the frontline workers who made his business successful. He had come here expecting to find lazy employees or poor management. Instead, he was discovering a workplace culture that he had unknowingly created, one that prioritized efficiency and profit over the human beings who made it all possible. The afternoon sun streamed through the large windows of the coffee shop, creating patches of warm light across the busy floor. Marcus had been working for nearly 8 hours, and his feet ached in ways he had forgotten were possible. His expensive, leather shoes disguised under worn sneakers were not designed for standing on hard floors all day, but his discomfort paled in comparison to what he was observing about Maya and the other staff members. Maya had been working for over 10 hours without a proper break. Marcus watched as she discreetly stretched her back when she thought customers weren't looking, and noticed how she occasionally gripped the counter edge to steady herself. Her smile remained bright for customers, but he could see the exhaustion behind her eyes. "How long have you been working here?" Marcus asked during a brief moment when the line subsided. "About 2 years," Maya replied, quickly wiping down the counter. "I started part-time during high school, but now I'm here full-time while taking night classes. I'm studying business management, actually. Someday I'd love to run a coffee shop of my own." Marcus felt another pang of guilt. Here was an employee with dreams and ambitions, working herself to exhaustion in his establishment, while pursuing an education that could help her succeed. Yet his corporate policies were making her path unnecessarily difficult. "What are you studying specifically?" he asked, genuinely curious. Maya's eyes lit up despite her fatigue. "I'm focusing on small business operations and customer relations. I've learned so much just from working here about what makes customers happy and what doesn't. Like, we have regulars who come in every day and they're not just buying coffee. They're buying a few minutes of human connection before they face their day." She pointed to an elderly man sitting by the window. "That's Mr. Henderson. He orders the same medium coffee with 1 sugar every morning at exactly 8:15. His wife passed away last year, and I think coming here gives him a reason to get out of the house and talk to people. When he doesn't show up, I worry about him." Marcus looked at Mr. Henderson, seeing him not as a revenue unit but as Sarah described, a lonely widower finding community in a coffee shop. This was the kind of insight that never appeared in corporate reports, but was invaluable for understanding the real purpose of their business. "That's really thoughtful of you," Marcus said. "Do the managers appreciate that kind of customer relationship building?" Maya's expression became more guarded. "Well, Sarah tries her best, but corporate keeps pushing for faster service times. We get emails about average transaction speeds and labor costs. Sometimes I feel like I'm supposed to treat customers like numbers instead of people." Before Marcus could respond, a group of teenagers entered, laughing loudly and taking their time deciding what to order. He watched Maya patiently explain different drink options, make suggestions based on their preferences, and handle their indecision with good humor. When one of them realized they didn't have enough money for what they wanted, Maya quietly used her employee discount to help cover the difference. "Why did you do that?" Marcus asked after they left. Maya shrugged. "They're just kids. I remember what it was like being their age and really wanting something but not having enough money. Besides, they'll probably become regular customers if we treat them well now. It's an investment in the business." Marcus realized that Maya intuitively understood customer lifetime value better than many of his corporate executives. Yet she was making $8 an hour with no benefits, while those executives made six-figure salaries, analyzing spreadsheets about customer retention. As the day continued, Marcus noticed more troubling patterns. The store was consistently understaffed, leading to longer wait times and stressed employees. The espresso machine had been making strange noises all day, but Sarah mentioned that corporate had denied the request for repairs because it was still functional. The staff break room was tiny and depressing, with a broken refrigerator and uncomfortable plastic chairs. Around 4 p.m., Maya began showing more obvious signs of exhaustion. She had to ask customers to repeat their orders more frequently, and Marcus saw her sway slightly while standing at the register. Her usual bright energy was being sustained by what appeared to be sheer willpower. "Are you okay?" Marcus asked quietly. "Just tired," Maya replied, forcing another smile. "I've been pulling double shifts this week because Jenny quit last Monday, and we haven't hired a replacement yet. I need the hours anyway. Tuition is due next month." Marcus learned that Jenny had quit because she couldn't afford to work for such low wages while trying to support her family. This created a cycle where remaining employees had to work extra hours to cover the shortage, leading to burnout and more people quitting. "How many hours are you working this week?" he asked. Maya calculated quickly in her head. "This will be about 70 hours between here and my evening job at the restaurant. I know it sounds like a lot, but I'm saving money for school and trying to help my mom with rent. She's been struggling since her hours got cut at the factory." 70 hours. Marcus tried to remember the last time he had worked 70 hours in a week. Even during his most demanding periods as CEO, he had the flexibility to take breaks, work from comfortable offices, and take vacations when needed. Maya was working 70 hours at physically demanding jobs that paid barely above minimum wage, all while trying to get an education. A well-dressed businessman approached the counter, talking loudly on his phone and barely acknowledging Maya's greeting. He snapped his fingers to get her attention while continuing his call, then became irritated when she politely asked him to repeat his order since she couldn't hear over his conversation. "Can't you see I'm on an important call?" he demanded. "Just give me a large coffee, Black, and make it fast. Some of us have real jobs." Marcus felt his temper rise, but Maya handled the situation with incredible professionalism. She prepared his order quickly and efficiently, even though the man's behavior was completely inappropriate. After he left, still talking loudly on his phone, Maya simply took a deep breath and smiled at the next customer. "How do you stay so positive when customers treat you like that?" Marcus asked. "You can't take it personally," Maya explained. "Maybe he's having a bad day, or maybe nobody ever taught him how to treat service workers with respect. Either way, getting angry about it would just make my day worse. I'd rather focus on the customers who are kind and appreciative." Marcus was amazed by her maturity and emotional intelligence. This young woman, who was being paid a fraction of what his corporate executives earned, demonstrated better leadership qualities than many people in his company's management structure. As the evening shift approached, Marcus expected Maya to finally get some rest. Instead, he learned that she would be leaving Coffee Corp to go directly to her second job at a family restaurant across town, where she would work until midnight. She had been maintaining this schedule for months, catching only a few hours of sleep before starting the cycle again. The evening rush began around 5 p.m. as office workers stopped by for their afternoon caffeine fix or end-of-workday treat. Marcus had assumed the pace would slow down, but instead it seemed to intensify. Maya had now been working for nearly 12 hours straight, and the signs of exhaustion were becoming impossible to hide. Her movements, which had been smooth and efficient all day, were now slightly slower and less coordinated. She had to grip the counter more frequently to steady herself, and Marcus noticed her hands shaking when she thought no one was looking. Despite this, she continued to serve customers with the same warm smile and patient attention she had shown all day. "Maya, when does your shift actually end?" Marcus asked during a brief lull. "Officially at 6 p.m., she replied. "But Tom called in sick for the evening shift, so I'm covering until 9. Then I head to Romano's restaurant for the dinner rush." She rubbed her temples briefly before immediately straightening up as another customer approached. Marcus felt sick to his stomach. This meant Maya would work a 15-hour day at Coffee Corp, then go directly to another physically demanding job until midnight. She would get home around 1 a.m., maybe catch 5 hours of sleep, then return to start another long day at the coffee shop. "Doesn't the company have policies against working employees this many hours?" Marcus asked Sarah during a quiet moment. Sarah looked around nervously before answering. "Technically, yes, but corporate has made it clear that labor costs need to stay under 15% of revenue. When people call in sick or quit, we can't afford to bring in substitutes. Maya volunteers for the extra hours because she needs the money, and honestly, we need her here. She's the only one who can handle the morning rush without falling apart." Marcus realized his cost-cutting measures had created a perfect storm. Low wages meant high turnover, which led to understaffing, which forced remaining employees to work excessive hours just to keep the stores running. The human cost of his efficient business model was becoming painfully clear. Around 7 p.m., Marcus noticed Maya was having trouble focusing. She had to ask customers to repeat their orders multiple times, and she nearly dropped a hot coffee while handing it across the counter. Her usually perfect posture had deteriorated, and she was leaning heavily on the register between transactions. "Maya, you really should take a break," Marcus suggested. "Even just 15 minutes to sit down." She shook her head. "Can't afford to. The line gets too long, and then Sarah gets stressed about the wait times. Corporate tracks how long customers spend in the store, and if the numbers look bad, the managers get in trouble." A regular customer, a middle-aged woman named Mrs. Chen, noticed Maya's condition. "Honey, you look exhausted. Are you feeling all right?" "I'm fine, Mrs. Chen," Maya replied, though her voice lacked its usual energy. "Just a long day." "What can I get for you?" Mrs. Chen ordered her usual latte but lingered at the counter with concern. "You work too hard, dear. Make sure you're taking care of yourself." After Mrs. Chen left, Maya confided in Marcus. "She's right. I am tired, but I can't afford to miss work. My mom's been out of her job for 2 weeks with a back injury, and if I don't make rent this month, we might get evicted. The restaurant job pays a little better, but I need both jobs to make ends meet." Marcus learned that Maya's mother worked in a factory with poor safety conditions, and her injury was work-related. However, the company was fighting the workers' compensation claim, leaving the family without income during her recovery period. Maya had become the sole breadwinner for her household, while still trying to complete her education. "What about student loans for school?" Marcus asked. "That might give you some breathing room. I already have some loans, but I'm trying to minimize debt," Maya explained. "I've seen what happens to people who graduate with huge loan payments. Besides, working here has taught me things about business that I never would have learned in a classroom. I understand inventory management, customer service, staff scheduling, supply chain issues, all because I've lived it." Marcus realized that Maya was getting a more comprehensive business education through her work experience than many MBA students received in graduate school, yet she was being paid as if her labor was unskilled and easily replaceable. As 8 p.m. approached, Maya's condition worsened noticeably. She had to pause frequently to catch her breath, and her skin had taken on a pale, slightly grayish color. When she reached up to adjust the espresso machine settings, Marcus saw her wince in pain and grab her lower back. "How long since you've had a full day off?" Marcus asked. Maya thought for a moment. "I think it was about 3 weeks ago. I had the flu and literally couldn't get out of bed. Even then, I felt guilty about calling in sick because I knew it would leave everyone short-handed." The revelation horrified Marcus. This dedicated employee hadn't had a voluntary day off in over 3 weeks. She was working 7 days a week, often pulling double shifts, while attending night classes and supporting her injured mother. The physical and mental toll was clearly enormous. Around 8:30 p.m., Maya began showing signs of serious distress. She was swaying more noticeably and had to grip the counter to stay upright. Her breathing had become shallow and rapid, and sweat beaded on her forehead, despite the air conditioning. "Maya, you need to sit down," Marcus insisted. "You don't look well." "I can't," she whispered. "Only 30 more minutes until closing prep. I can make it." But Marcus could see that she couldn't make it. Her body was clearly running on empty, sustained only by determination and necessity. He watched helplessly as this hard-working young woman pushed herself beyond reasonable human limits simply to survive financially. A customer ordered a complex drink with multiple modifications, and Maya struggled to input the order correctly. She had to start over twice, apologizing profusely each time. The customer became impatient and made a snide comment about the service quality. Maya's hands were shaking so badly, she could barely operate the touchscreen. "I'm so sorry," she whispered to Marcus after the customer left. "I don't know what's wrong with me today. I'm usually much better at this." Marcus wanted to tell her that nothing was wrong with her, that working 15-hour days without breaks would exhaust anyone. He wanted to reveal his identity and immediately change the policies that were destroying the health and well-being of employees like Maya. But he knew he needed to understand the full scope of the problem before he could create lasting solutions. 9 p.m. closing time approached. Maya began the end-of-day cleaning procedures while simultaneously serving the last few customers. She moved like someone operating on muscle memory alone, her body going through familiar motions while her mind struggled to stay alert. Marcus could see that she was running entirely on fumes, and he wondered how much longer she could possibly continue before something gave way. At 9 p.m., as the last customers filed out of Coffee Corp., Maya began the closing procedures that Marcus realized would add another hour to her already impossibly long day. She moved like someone in a trance, mechanically cleaning the espresso machines, wiping down counters and restocking supplies for the next morning. Her face had taken on a concerning grayish pallor, and she was breathing in shallow, rapid bursts. "Let me help with the cleaning," Marcus offered, genuinely worried about her condition. "Thanks, but I have a system," Maya replied weakly. "It goes faster if I do it myself. Besides, I need to get to Romano's by 10:30 for the dinner rush cleanup." Marcus watched in dismay as Maya tried to lift a heavy container of coffee beans to refill the dispensers. Her arms shook with the effort, and she had to set it down twice before successfully pouring the beans. Simple tasks that should have taken minutes were stretching longer, as her exhausted body struggled to cooperate. Sarah had left at 8 p.m., leaving Maya to close the store alone despite her obvious distress. Marcus learned this was standard practice. The closing shift worker was responsible for all end-of-day procedures, regardless of how many hours they had already worked. There was no extra compensation for staying late or handling closing duties. "Maya, how often do you close by yourself?" Marcus asked while helping her stack chairs despite her protests. "Most nights," she admitted. "The evening shift people are usually part-timers who have other commitments. Since I'm already here and need the hours, it makes sense for me to stay." What made sense to corporate efficiency made no sense from a human perspective, Marcus realized. Maya was being exploited not because she was lazy or incapable, but precisely because she was so dedicated and desperate for income. As Maya bent down to clean under the display case, Marcus saw her grip the counter edge and close her eyes for a moment, clearly fighting off dizziness. When she straightened up, she swayed dangerously and had to steady herself against the pastry display. "Maya, please sit down for just a minute," Marcus pleaded. "You're scaring me." "I can't," she whispered. "If I sit down, I don't think I'll be able to get back up. I just need to finish here and get to my other job. They're counting on me." The dedication in her voice broke Marcus's heart. Even in her clearly compromised state, Maya was more concerned about letting down her coworkers than about her own well-being. This was the kind of employee loyalty that his corporate training had taught him to value, but he was seeing the dark side of that loyalty when it became self-destructive. Around 9:45 p.m., while Maya was emptying the coffee grounds into the dumpster out back, Marcus took the opportunity to really examine the working conditions. The staff break room was worse than he had initially noticed. The broken refrigerator meant employees couldn't safely store food for their meals. The chairs were plastic lawn chairs that provided no back support for people who had been standing all day. There was no comfortable place to rest during breaks, no privacy for phone calls, and the fluorescent lighting was harsh and flickering. The equipment throughout the store was old and poorly maintained. The espresso machine that had been making strange noises all day was held together with electrical tape in several places. The register system was slow and glitchy, adding extra time to every transaction. The non-slip mats behind the counter were worn smooth, creating a safety hazard for employees who were already exhausted and unsteady. When Maya returned from the dumpster, Marcus could see that the brief walk in the cool evening air had actually made her look worse. Her cheeks were flushed, but her lips had a bluish tint that alarmed him. She was breathing heavily from the minimal exertion, and she had to lean against the door frame before walking back to the counter. "How much longer until you're finished? Here?" Marcus asked, though he already knew the answer would be devastating. "Maybe 15 more minutes," Maya said, though her movements suggested it would take much longer. "Then I need to drive across town to Romano's. The dinner rush cleanup starts at 10:30 and I can't be late. I've never been late to either job." Marcus did quick mental math. Maya had been at Coffee Corp since 6 a.m., over 15 hours. She would now drive to another physically demanding job and work until midnight or later. If she was lucky, she might get home by 1 a.m., giving her maybe 4 or 5 hours of sleep before returning to Coffee Corp at 6 a.m. to start the cycle again. "When do you study?" Marcus asked. "You mentioned night classes." "Online courses, mostly," Maya replied while struggling to lift the heavy coffee urns into the washing sink. "I do assignments during breaks at Romano's or after I get home if I'm not too tired. Sometimes I study in my car between jobs." The image of Maya sitting in her car in a restaurant parking lot, trying to complete college coursework after working 15-hour days, made Marcus feel physically ill. This young woman was sacrificing her health and well-being to get an education that might eventually lift her out of poverty, but the immediate demands of survival were making that goal nearly impossible to achieve. At 10:15 p.m., Maya was finishing the last of the closing procedures when disaster struck. She was reaching up to turn off the overhead menu lights when her legs simply gave out beneath her. Marcus watched in horror as she crumpled to the floor, behind the counter, unconscious before she hit the ground. "Maya!" Marcus rushed to her side, his heart pounding. She was breathing but unconscious, her skin pale and clammy. He immediately called 911, then knelt beside her, checking for injuries from the fall. While waiting for the ambulance, Marcus held Maya's hand and spoke to her softly, hoping she could hear him even though she wasn't responding. Her pulse was rapid and weak, and she was shivering despite the warm temperature in the store. All the signs pointed to exhaustion and dehydration, possibly complicated by low blood sugar from not eating properly throughout her impossibly long workday. The paramedics arrived within minutes and quickly began assessing Maya's condition. As they checked her vital signs and asked Marcus questions about what had happened, Maya slowly regained consciousness. Her first words weren't about her own condition, they were about her responsibilities. "What time is it?" she whispered weakly. "I need to get to Romano's. They're expecting me." "Maya, you collapsed," Marcus explained gently. "You need medical attention. Romano's will have to manage without you tonight." Tears began streaming down Maya's face. "I can't miss work. I can't afford to lose this job. My mom needs her medication and rent is due in 3 days." Even while lying on a stretcher, potentially facing a serious medical emergency, Maya was more worried about her financial obligations than her health. Marcus realized that this was the ultimate consequence of his corporate policies. They had created a work environment so precarious that employees would literally work themselves to the point of collapse rather than risk losing their income. As the paramedics prepared to transport Maya to the hospital, she grabbed Marcus's arm with surprising strength. "Please don't tell Sarah what happened. If corporate finds out I collapsed at work, they might fire me for being unreliable. Promise me you won't say anything." Marcus promised, though he knew this was a promise he would not be able to keep. Everything about this situation was about to change, starting with his own understanding of what it meant to be a responsible employer. Marcus rode in the ambulance with Maya, holding her hand as the paramedics continued monitoring her vital signs. The hospital emergency room was busy, but Maya's condition was quickly assessed as severe exhaustion and dehydration. The doctor, who examined her, was a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and a no-nonsense manner. "When did you last have a full meal?" Dr. Martinez asked Maya, who was now conscious but still very weak. "I had some crackers around noon," Maya replied quietly. "I meant to eat more, but we were so busy." "And how many hours have you been working today?" Maya looked embarrassed. "Since 6 a.m. this morning, but I'm supposed to work until midnight at my other job." Dr. Martinez frowned as she made notes on Maya's chart. "That's over 18 hours. Have you been maintaining this kind of schedule regularly?" "Most days," Maya admitted. "I need both jobs to make ends meet." The doctor turned to Marcus, assuming he was a friend or family member. "Young people think they're invincible, but the human body has limits. She's severely dehydrated, her blood sugar crashed, and her blood pressure is dangerously low. If she had continued working, she could have had a heart episode or serious injury from another fall." Marcus felt the weight of responsibility crushing down on him. His policies had created conditions that put dedicated employees like Maya at serious health risk. While he had been focused on profit margins and efficiency metrics, real people were literally working themselves sick, trying to survive on the wages his company paid. Maya was admitted for observation overnight, connected to an IV to restore her fluid balance and stabilize her blood sugar. As she rested in the hospital bed, she kept apologizing and worrying about the shifts she would miss at both jobs. "I need to call Romano's and explain what happened," she said weakly. "Maybe if I tell them it was just a dizzy spell, they'll let me come in tomorrow." "Maya, you need to focus on getting better," Marcus said. "Your jobs can wait." "You don't understand," Maya replied, tears forming in her eyes. "I can't afford to miss work. My mom's medication costs $200 and insurance only covers half. If I miss even one day of pay, we won't be able to afford it." Marcus learned that Maya's mother had diabetes and needed daily insulin, but their health insurance had high deductibles and limited coverage. Maya's 2 jobs barely provided enough income to cover basic living expenses, plus her mother's medical needs. Missing work for any reason, including medical emergencies, could create a financial crisis for their family. "What about sick leave, or workers' compensation?" Marcus asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. "Part-time workers don't get sick leave," Maya explained. "And since I collapsed after my official shift ended, it probably doesn't count as a workplace injury. I'll just have to work extra hours next week to make up for the lost income." The irony was devastating. Maya was planning to work even more hours to compensate for the hospital stay that resulted from working too many hours in the first place. The cycle of exhaustion and financial desperation seemed impossible to break under the current system. Marcus spent the night in the hospital chair beside Maya's bed, watching her sleep fitfully and thinking about everything he had learned. His phone buzzed with messages from his corporate executives about quarterly projections and cost-cutting initiatives, but those concerns seemed trivial compared to the human crisis he was witnessing. In the morning, Dr. Martinez returned with Maya's test results and discharge instructions. "Your levels have stabilized, but you're not out of the woods yet. You need at least 3 days of complete rest, proper nutrition, and adequate sleep. No working until your body has time to recover." Maya's face went pale. "I can't take 3 days off. I'll lose both jobs. If you don't take time to recover, you'll end up back here with something much more serious," Dr. Martinez warned. "Chronic exhaustion can lead to heart problems, immune system failure, and mental health crises. You're 23 years old. Your body is trying to tell you something important." After the doctor left, Maya turned to Marcus with desperate eyes. "I don't know what to do. If I follow the doctor's orders, my family loses our apartment and my mom goes without medication. If I go back to work, I might collapse again. I feel trapped." Marcus realized that Maya's situation was not unique. Across his company's 300 locations, there were probably dozens of employees facing similar impossible choices between their health and their survival. His efficient business model was built on the backs of people who couldn't afford to be anything but completely self-sacrificing. What if there was a way to take the time off without losing income? Marcus asked carefully. Hypothetically speaking. Maya laughed bitterly. That would require either sick leave benefits, which part-time workers don't get, or managers who care more about employees than profit margins. I've never seen either in food service. Her words stung because Marcus knew they were accurate. His company policies explicitly discouraged sick leave for part-time workers and incentivized managers to prioritize cost control over employee welfare. He had created a system that punished workers for being human. Later that morning, Marcus called Sarah to report that Mark wouldn't be coming in due to a family emergency. During the conversation, he asked about Maya's absence. "Yeah, she called in sick," Sarah said with obvious frustration. "Probably just exhaustion from pulling those double shifts. I told her she needs to pace herself better, but these young people think they can do everything. Now I have to find coverage for both shifts, and corporate is going to be furious about the overtime costs." Marcus was appalled by Sarah's lack of empathy until he realized that she was simply responding to the pressure he had created. Managers were evaluated on cost control and profit margins, not employee wellness. Sarah was probably struggling with her own impossible situation, trying to keep a store running with insufficient staff and resources while facing constant pressure to cut costs. "How often do employees call in sick?" Marcus asked, trying to understand the scope of the problem. "More often lately," Sarah admitted. "We've had 3 people quit in the past month because of the hours and stress. The remaining staff is burning out fast. Maya's been our most reliable worker, but even she's showing signs of breaking down. I don't know how much longer any of us can keep this up." Marcus realized that the employee turnover crisis was creating a downward spiral. As workers quit due to impossible conditions, remaining employees had to work longer hours to compensate, leading to exhaustion and more people quitting. The short-term cost savings from reduced labor were creating long-term problems that would eventually destroy the business. After ending the call, Marcus sat in the hospital cafeteria and did some calculations on his phone. If he provided proper staffing levels, reasonable work schedules, living wages, and basic benefits like sick leave, it would increase labor costs by approximately 30%. However, the savings from reduced turnover, improved productivity, better customer service, and avoided legal issues would likely offset much of that increase. More importantly, Marcus realized that his company was currently profitable because it was externalizing the true costs of doing business onto employees and society. Maya's medical bills, her family's housing instability, and her interrupted education were all hidden costs of his efficient labor model. The taxpayers would ultimately bear these costs through emergency medical care, social services, and lost economic productivity. When Maya woke from her afternoon nap, Marcus found her researching online courses she could take from her phone to avoid falling behind in her studies. Even while recovering from exhaustion in a hospital bed, she was trying to maintain her impossible schedule. "Maya, what would you do differently if you ran a coffee shop?" Marcus asked. Her eyes lit up despite her fatigue. "I'd make sure every employee could afford to live on their wages from one job. I'd create real break schedules so people could eat meals and rest properly. I'd invest in good equipment and training so work would be easier and more efficient. And I'd remember that happy, healthy employees provide better customer service, which brings in more business." Maya's business philosophy was more sophisticated and sustainable than the approach his corporate team had been using. She understood that treating employees well was not just morally right, but economically smart. Yet she was stuck in a system that prevented her from implementing these ideas. "Why do you think so many companies treat workers poorly?" Marcus asked. Maya thought carefully before answering. "I think the people making decisions never actually do the work themselves. They see labor as a cost to be minimized instead of an investment in quality service. They probably think we're all replaceable, so why bother treating us well? But what they don't realize is that constantly hiring and training new people costs more than keeping good employees happy." Her analysis was more insightful than most business school case studies Marcus had read. Maya had identified the fundamental disconnect between corporate leadership and frontline operations that plagued many companies, including his own. As evening approached, Maya became increasingly anxious about the income she was losing. Marcus watched her calculate and recalculate her finances on her phone, trying to figure out how to make rent and afford her mother's medication with reduced hours. I might have to drop out of school temporarily. Marcus returned to the hospital the next morning with a plan that would change Maya's life and transform Coffee Corp forever. Maya was scheduled to be discharged, but she was still weak and worried about returning to work too soon. When Marcus walked into her room, she was on the phone trying to negotiate with her landlord about a payment extension. "Please, just 3 more days," Maya was saying. "I'll have the rent money by Friday, I promise. I've never been late before." Her voice cracked with stress and exhaustion. After Maya ended the call, she looked at Marcus with tears in her eyes. "My landlord is threatening eviction if I don't pay rent by tomorrow. The hospital bill is going to be at least $1,000 even with insurance, and I've missed 2 days of work. I don't know how I'm going to manage this." Marcus took a deep breath. It was time to tell Maya the truth about who he really was. "Maya, I need to tell you something important. My name isn't Mark, and I'm not just a new employee. I'm Marcus Richardson, the CEO and founder of Coffee Corp." Maya stared at him in shock, then confusion, then fear. "You're the CEO? But why were you working at the store? Was this some kind of test? Am I in trouble for complaining about the company?" "No, you're not in trouble at all," Marcus assured her quickly. "I came to work undercover because I wanted to understand what was really happening in my stores. I thought I might find lazy employees or poor management, but instead I found dedicated people like you being pushed beyond human limits by policies I created." Maya's expression shifted from fear to disbelief. "You're really the CEO? The person who makes all the corporate decisions?" "Yes, and I'm horrified by what I've learned. Maya, you shouldn't have to work 2 jobs to survive. You shouldn't have to choose between your health and paying rent. You shouldn't have to drop out of school because we don't pay living wages. What happened to you is my responsibility, and I'm going to fix it." Maya was quiet for a long moment, processing this revelation. So when I was complaining about corporate policies, I was actually complaining to the person who created them. Yes, and every complaint was justified. I built a system that treats dedicated employees like you as disposable resources instead of valuable human beings. That changes starting today. Marcus pulled out his phone and made a call that Maya could hear clearly. "This is Marcus Richardson. I need you to implement some immediate policy changes across all Coffee Corp locations, effective today. First, minimum wage for all employees is now $18 per hour. Second, anyone working more than 20 hours per week gets full benefits, including health insurance and paid sick leave. Third, no employee works more than 40 hours per week at any single location. Fourth, we're hiring additional staff immediately to ensure proper coverage." Maya listened in amazement as Marcus continued issuing orders that would revolutionize working conditions throughout the company. "Also, I want a $1,000 bonus paid immediately to Maya Santos at the Maple Street location, and I want her medical bills from yesterday covered completely by the company. Consider it workers' compensation for injuries sustained due to our inadequate staffing policies." After ending the call, Marcus turned back to Maya. "Your rent is covered, your medical bills are paid, and you're getting a significant raise. But more importantly, you'll never have to work those brutal hours again because we're hiring enough staff to create humane schedules." Maya began crying, but this time they were tears of relief and disbelief. "I don't understand. Why are you doing this?" "It's going to cost the company a lot of money, because it's the right thing to do, and because employees like you are the real foundation of this business. You understand customer service, operational efficiency, and business sustainability better than most of my corporate executives. You've been getting a business education through experience that money can't buy." Marcus explained his proposal. "I want to offer you a position as a regional training manager. You'd travel to different stores, help implement the new policies, and train other employees in the customer service excellence you've already mastered. The salary would be $60,000 per year with full benefits, flexible scheduling, to accommodate your studies, and tuition reimbursement for your business degree." Maya stared at him in stunned silence. $60,000? That's more than I make in both jobs combined. I could actually afford to live, help my mom, and finish school without destroying my health. That's exactly the point. I want Coffee Corp to be a place where hardworking people like you can build careers and achieve their dreams, not just survive day to day. Over the next several weeks, Marcus worked closely with Maya to implement the changes throughout Coffee Corp. The transformation wasn't easy. Some franchisees resisted the increased labor costs, and shareholders initially worried about reduced profits. However, the results spoke for themselves. Employee turnover dropped by 70% within 3 months. Customer satisfaction scores improved dramatically as stores were properly staffed with well-trained, motivated employees. The quality of service increased because workers weren't exhausted and stressed. Sales actually grew because customers enjoyed the improved experience and visited more frequently. Maya flourished in her new role as regional training manager. She developed comprehensive training programs that emphasized both operational efficiency and genuine customer care. Her insights from working on the front lines made her an invaluable resource for improving store operations. She continued her business studies with the company's tuition assistance program and was accepted into an accelerated MBA program. 6 months after the transformation began, Marcus visited the Maple Street location during the morning rush. The difference was remarkable. The store had 4 employees working the morning shift instead of Maya struggling alone. Everyone looked healthy and energetic. Customers moved through the line efficiently, but without the frantic pace that had previously characterized the store. Maya was there conducting training for new hires, teaching them not just operational procedures but the philosophy of treating every customer as a valued individual. Marcus watched as she demonstrated the patient, caring approach that had impressed him during his undercover experience. The most important thing to remember, Maya told the trainees, is that we're not just selling coffee. We're providing a positive start to someone's day. When you treat customers with genuine care and attention, you're making their lives a little bit better. And when employees are treated well by management, it's natural to pass that positive energy on to customers. After the training session, Maya approached Marcus with a big smile. The new policies are working even better than we hoped. Employee morale is through the roof, and we're actually serving more customers per hour because people aren't exhausted and making mistakes. Marcus nodded with satisfaction. What about your personal goals? How are school and your family situation? My mom's back to work and her medical bills are manageable now with our better insurance. I'm on track to graduate next year, and I've been accepted to several good MBA programs. But honestly, I'm learning so much in this role that I might stay with Coffee Corp long term. There are so many opportunities to grow within the company now. The transformation of Coffee Corp became a model for other companies in the service industry. Marcus was invited to speak at business conferences about how treating employees well was not just morally right but economically smart. The company's stock price actually increased as investors recognized the long-term stability and growth potential of a business built on sustainable employment practices. Marcus often reflected on that day when Maya collapsed behind the counter. Her dedication and collapse had opened his eyes to the human cost of prioritizing short-term profits over employee welfare. By changing his approach, he had not only improved the lives of thousands of workers but had actually built a stronger, more profitable company. Maya's story became a symbol of what was possible when businesses recognized that their employees were their most valuable assets, not their biggest expense. The young woman who had once worked herself to the point of exhaustion was now helping to create a workplace where no one would ever have to make those impossible choices again.